will see you tomorrow night. Pass is caught. Diggs, sideline, touchdown. Keeps on the drive. Deep left field. No doubt about it. It is caught by Tyree. Here comes Escobar. 1-0 Kansas City. Didn't have the angle. Touchdown. It is gone. It is Seattle going to the Super Bowl.
You know what time of the day it is. Welcome back, sports fans, to Field and Diamond Talks with Caleb, Break, and Matt. Well, episode 3, gents, how are we feeling?
Crazy that we've gotten this far already. Thank you for the support on the, of course, the first video. That's what kicked off this series, really. Awesome. I know that we've gotten a couple new subscribers. That's always great to see. Definitely want to just keep seeing this thing grow and grow. We just today, as of this is September 1st, so we did just drop the second episode today. So whenever this one drops, make sure you have checked that one out before you watch this one. But yeah, continue to watch our content. We love putting stuff out for you guys. Would love to see you guys comment, everything else. Keep it up.
Okay, all right. But yeah, we really do enjoy the support. Honestly, we love doing these. It's a blast. It means a lot to see all the support that we get. So, but we got a loaded show for you guys today. So I guess I better run down the itinerary for you guys. Let me pull that up. First things first, we're going to be talking about MLB standings. We're going to go about our teams, where they're sitting, what the overall picture looks like for the playoffs since we're about, I'd say maybe 4 weeks away.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yep.
That'd be the beginning of October.
College football weekend recap, running down a few games that we had picked out, and as well as just the weekend in a whole. Bringing back the Wheel of Nostalgia for the second week in a row in the next 6 weeks, of course. So one more player is going to get picked off the wheel, and we're going to talk about them. And then we're going to run down our player spotlights and projected award winners for both the NFL and the MLB. Basically running down MVP awards, offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, all that. So I guess without further ado, let's get right into it.
Yep. We can definitely do that. You were a little laggy there, Caleb. Hopefully that wasn't affected in the recording, but yeah. So hopefully our listeners heard the rundown. If not, we can definitely just keep listing the rundown. But so yeah, first thing we'll talk about obviously is the MLB standings overview. So big thing as it stands right now. I'll just go ahead and go over the American League. So for the last time we did this in our very first episode. We kind of ran down the standings and kind of took our takes for what we thought it was going to look like come the end of the year. And here we are kind of revisiting it. I'd like to do this like every other episode, just kind of see, because that gives a full 2 weeks between, I believe, and that'll be good to see what all happens. So I guess without further ado, I'll go ahead and I'll go through the American League. So American League East, not a whole lot's changed. Yankees and Orioles still just a dogfight. Big dogfight, just trying to fight out for the division and who's going to be in the wild card. Nothing's really changed very much for those two teams. Honestly, I think it's going to be a fight till the end. I do believe the Orioles will probably still win. That's just my personal opinion. I think the Yankees are they're 6-4 in their last 10. They lost one yesterday as of September 1st. But and then the Orioles are kind of skidding a little bit as of late. The last 10 they're 4-6, but they've also lost one as of September 1st. But there's still this whole month of baseball left in September, so lots of ball to go. as far as the rest of the teams in this division, there's not a whole lot of chance for them making it. The Red Sox, they've just hit the 70 wins. They're 9 games out of first in the division, and the Rays and Blue Jays, they're pretty far apart as well. So I don't really see much happening in that division. Matt, Caleb, you guys have anything on that at all?
I don't really got much. I mean, I agree with you. I feel like Baltimore will be able to squeak it out. I really feel like that division started out as a real dogfight, but it's kind of slowly starting to slow down. It's just kind of mellowing out, and I think eventually at the top there, somebody's going to find one way to get ahead, whether it's just getting hot at the right time or one team falls off and they're able to pounce just by maybe 2 games ahead. One way or another, I feel like I agree with you. I feel like Baltimore's got the edge in the East because, especially with all the acquisitions they made on the trade deadline, picking up a few guys, I just feel like their roster's a little bit more stacked than the Yankees. No discredit to Aaron Judge, no discredit to Juan Soto or anybody on the Yankees, but I feel like the Orioles might be able to squeak it out.
Most certainly. Matt, you got anything?
I agree. I think the Orioles will take the division from the Yankees here soon, and they will be the ones who win the division, while the Yankees will take that wild card spot that the Orioles do have now. But like you said, it's going to be a fight between them till the very end of this month, and playoffs roll around.
Yeah, I'm hoping both those teams actually meet in the playoffs. That'd make for a very exciting series. So, without further ado, we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the AL Central. Also a division that's kind of not changed a whole heck of a lot. I mean, the Twins, I believe the Twins, whenever we were when we looked at the division last, the Twins were in first, I believe, or they were close to it. No, they were in second. Sorry, they were in second place. The Guardians were still in first. Which the Guardians still lead. They are in first, and then the Royals are now second. Twins are third, but it's all separating between pretty much a game. The Royals are 2.5 out of first. The Twins are 3.5 at this time. Their last 10 for all 3 of those teams, not good. Not good at all. The Guardians in their last 10 are 4-6. Royals in their last 10 are 4-6, and the Twins in their last 10 are 3-7. And the Royals have lost 4 straight. Caleb, that's your team. I'll let you have some emphasis on what you're thinking. So go ahead.
Don't get me started. I'm still pretty livid. I mean, it's been such a downhill spiral since that final game in Cleveland for Kansas City. I mean, we had Cleveland up on the ropes, and going into the top of the 7th, Quatraro decided to send Waka back out there, and then it was just from there. It's just basically a butterfly effect. It all started falling apart at the seams. We tried to bring out Urseg, and he ended up blowing it. And ever since then, Urseg hasn't been what he was when we first got him. When we first got him, he was nails. He couldn't be stopped. But now it's just he looks like a shell of himself. Granted, he's injured right now, but after having dropped our last 4 games, and I don't know what the score of the game right now is, I'll check in on that later. But this is going to be make or break time. I mean, if we've got Cleveland coming back to Kansas City, if not tomorrow, then the day after. So it's really go time. Kansas City needs to step it up, or we're going to find ourselves on the outside looking in, and we're going to miss out on the playoffs. I mean, I know we just added Tommy Pham, Robbie Grossman, Yuli Gurriel, but losing Vinny Pasquantino and then Urseg getting hurt really hurt us. So I feel like, I don't feel like we're going to end up in 4th. I feel like we're strong enough that we can take this division. It's just a matter of we need everything we need to slow down, and we need to get back to playing our brand of baseball, and we need to actually just, I guess the best word is get it together.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that's a great take on the Royals. Definitely on kind of a downhill spiral right now, but I like what you said. They just definitely need to just kind of slow it down a little bit, play their brand of baseball, make sure that they can get back in this race. I mean, they're not super far out, thankfully. I mean, it seems like everybody in that division is kind of skidded a little bit as of late as far as their last 10 games go, especially the Twins, because right now it says that this is according to ESPN, the playoff chances right now for the Guardians are at 97.5%, and the Twins are at about 86.5. Meanwhile, the Royals are at about 80.4. Now that's a good like average percentage between the majority of you guys in there. That's that's like extraordinary. And then also, I know that these guys are kind of kicked down on the bottom, but the Tigers, I'm not saying that they have a shot at making the playoffs. I'm not saying that. But much improved from last year. I mean, they're over 500. You have four teams in your division right now that are over 500. That's just like that's extremely good baseball. And I mean, I said coming in, I believe, and I even said it on the first podcast we ever did. The AL Central is one of the better divisions in baseball, in my opinion. Um, Anything else to add? Like Matt, do you have anything on this before I kind of give my projection for the rest of the year for this division?
Uh, Not that I can think of. I think just like between the Yankees and the Orioles, it's going to be a dogfight between those three teams on who's going to take that division. I think if Kansas City can play the ball that they have played all year, I think they could take the division. If Cleveland doesn't play up to their standard, or even Minnesota can take it. I mean, you just never know. It like you said, that right now is probably the most interesting division in baseball to look at.
Yeah, most certainly. Um, if I were to predict how this would end today for this division, I think Cleveland's going to stick it out on top, but I have some hope for Kansas City, and I honestly think that Minnesota is going to be the one that falls out. I think that Kansas City is going to, like Caleb said, start to slow down, play their brand of baseball because they're a very good team, very talented team. They just lost Vinny Pascantino, so a little bit of a momentum hit, but I think that they can still do this. Now, do I see them being in the World Series winning this thing? Probably not. But honestly, much improved from last year. I'm very impressed with how the Royals have played this year. Very impressed with how they've really turned their season around, and I think more people need to be on notice for Kansas City. So props to them. But I think if anybody out of this division makes the most noise, it's gonna be Cleveland, just because they've been hot all year. Um, like Caleb said, we're gonna talk our discuss our award winners. I guess I'll give you a sneak peek of mine, at least for the Manager of the Year discussion. But I believe Stephen Vogt is definitely a very strong candidate in the American League for Manager of the Year, but also the Royals manager Quintaro. Um, I think that he will definitely be in the running as well. I mean, it just an amazing division of baseball right there. I'm very impressed with how the AL Central has really turned it around because it seemed like just a few years back, probably about 5 years ago, it was one of the worst in baseball to watch. So very impressed with how it's turned it around. So I guess we'll move on to the AL West, and then we'll get into the National League, and then we will move on to our next topic. But the AL West, I don't really have a whole lot to say for the West. Um, the Astros, they have a pretty comfortable lead right now. Uh, it would pretty much at this point, at the date September 1st, the Seattle Mariners would have to really step up and play pretty good ball, which I mean they're playing about pretty average right now. They're 5-5, but the American League is so loaded right now. I don't really see them. I mean, as it stands right now, Boston actually has a higher percentage chance of making the playoffs than the Mariners do, and the Mariners are in second place compared to the Red Sox who are in third. So I don't really see them doing much at all. They might. I guess the best thing for the Mariners is they can finish out the year 500 or above, or a little bit above it. Right now, they're a little bit above it. They're 69 and 67, but this is the Astros division. They've proven it time and time again for the last few years, outside of last year with Texas coming through. which honestly, I guess one thing I can say about the Rangers is pretty disappointing season to have directly after winning last year. Um, yeah, that's pretty much all I have about the AL West. Not a whole lot much more to add unless you guys have something.
Um, it's kind of surprising, you know. I mean, after Texas had that run to the World Series last year, I expected them to be close to maybe repeating, you know, being the first repeat champion we've had since about 2000, whenever the
Yeah, it's
Yankees won three straight from 98 to 2000. But
mhm.
seeing them in third in the division 10 games out, it's kind of surprising, you know, but that's just why it's, I guess, and you know, that's why I just love baseball so much because yeah, there might be some teams that make it back to the playoffs again and again, but we haven't seen a repeat champion in over 24 years.
Yeah. Ever since I've been born, that's how long it's been. I mean, that's what makes baseball so special. It's such a high turnaround rate with the divisions and players go in different teams. Players have different years, especially. I mean, Judge last season, um, for example. I mean, he had a good year, but nothing like his year in 22 where he popped off for the 60 some odd homers, and now look at him again this year. It's like the turnaround. People just thought, oh, he's not going to ever repeat that season. He did. You know, it's he. I'm not saying that I mean, and he hasn't cracked over 60 yet, but he's well on pace to do so this season. So yeah. Anything else to add, Matt, before we move on to the National League?
Um, I would say that AOS is probably the most depressing. Uh,
Yeah.
besides the NL Central, just because I mean you have the reigning champions 9.5 out of the wild card, let alone how far they're out of winning the division.
Mm-hmm.
But no one else even contending. I mean, the Angels, they're it's going to be a while before they contend, and same with it'll probably be 10 years into the future when Oakland's moved to Vegas before they compete again. But
Right.
I thought the Mariners would be closer, but I mean, like you said, the Astros just proved time and time again that that's their division. Besides last year, that they run it through and through.
Yep. And for those of you wondering if you think that Matt sounds a little under the weather today, you'd be correct. He is kind of fighting an illness, but we're glad he's here with us. Finally getting to record this podcast, so happy that he's here and we're
I'm
rolling on things.
I'm fighting this.
Well, yeah, hoping you get better, man. Definitely want to
Yeah,
see you in good health. So, yeah, if you wanna wish Matt some um, good health thoughts, you know, that'd be something to do. Okay, but moving on. So on to the National League. After this, we'll move on to our next topic, which would be the college football weekend recap. But we'll still stick with the standings for now. NL East, once again, kind of like the AL East, it hasn't really changed a whole bunch. I will say one thing I am impressed with: the Mets. The New York Mets have actually been playing very well. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They've won three straight, and they are right kind of on the heels of the Braves. I know that they're two behind the Braves in the division, and they're 8 out from first, but pretty impressive. Um, and we were just talking about Frankie Lindor about how good of a year he's been having this year compared to last season. Hitting like 269, has 28 homers, I believe is what you said, Matt, right?
Uh, 25, I think.
25. Okay, yeah, I knew it was in the 20s. But yeah, much better from last year. I mean, it looked almost like the last year whenever he was on the Mets, you know, he just did not play very well. But moving on from that, this is the Phillies division to lose in my eyes. I think the Braves are definitely a good team and they're going to make it into the postseason. But this is the Phillies division to lose. I definitely think that outside of LA, they're probably the best National League team out there. Um, in my humble opinion. But yeah, it's their division to lose, and I think that they're definitely going to be the ones that are going to be making the most noise out of this division in the playoffs. Like I said, Atlanta's probably going to make it. New York might sneak their way in, but I don't know. It'll be kind of tough because there's a lot of people in the West that might be able to kind of compete with them. But any thoughts on the East, fellas?
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of pretty. It's close. I mean, I didn't expect the Mets to come back within two, and I mean, all it's going to take is one little slip up from Arizona or San Diego, and the Mets will find themselves just that much closer. And if you look at it, yeah, the West is really tight, but you know that wild card race, it's kind of crazy to see that the West is so good that but two of their teams, like three of the teams, are going to be in the playoffs if the playoffs were to end today. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's also just surprising, seeing like some of these teams that we thought were going to be powerhouses, um, just kind of falter, kind of like they have, and especially like the Diamondbacks. They made it to the World Series last year, and look at them, they're scratching and clawing for just a wild card spot at this point. So it's always a little bit surprising to see how things shake out, but it's pretty awesome to see like how tight and to the wire that this playoff race is going to be now that we're getting down to the final month.
Right. Which to add on, I mean, Arizona. I mean, they made it in as a wild card team last year, but I mean, nobody really expected them to do that. Now everyone's kind of like, oh man, they're going to be right there. Like, I mean, coming in, people were kind of thinking uh, everyone was thinking that Arizona was going to attempt to repeat, obviously, and make it into the postseason, which they do still have a realistic shot at doing. But I think a lot of people thought that it was going to be LA and Arizona like dogging it out. Not saying that they would win the division over LA, but I feel like they could have maybe been a little bit closer. I mean, they're 6 games out in the West, but yeah. Um, as far as that wild card spot goes, I mean, like you said, one slip up and the Mets are in. One slip up from the Diamondbacks and Padres and they're in. So yeah, Matt, anything else to add on the East before we move on to the Central?
Um, Nothing really. I mean, the Braves have a game against Philly today. If they lose that and the Mets win today, that's just one game closer for the Mets being in
Oh yeah.
the wild card, and I could see it happening. I mean, it only takes a few losses and a few wins for a team to completely flip it, and I could see that happening.
Yeah.
Good lord, sorry. Bold prediction for me. The Mets make it over the Braves.
Okay. Okay. Uh yeah, I don't know. That's kind of tough for me. Like I said, I guess for my predictions for this division, how it's going to pan out at the end of the year, I think Philadelphia is going to win the whole division, and I think that, I guess this is my bold take about Philadelphia. I think they are probably the strongest team in the National League, and yes, I'm picking them over the Dodgers. You can count that. I will if we revisit in a few weeks whenever we're in postseason time and they're already eliminated by the Dodgers, I'll eat my words, that's fine. But I believe Philadelphia is the strongest team out of the NL, and I will stand by that. As far as the Braves and Mets go, I think that's, oh man.
It's too tight right now. It's just very tight.
It's so tight to decide, but yeah, I'm not gonna throw your prediction out of the window, Matt. I think that's definitely a good bold prediction that the Mets might make it in. Which
That's
that'd be huge for them.
yeah. I mean,
Huge confidence boost.
that's my thing. Is like I love how it's a three-team race in the East and the West currently. Meanwhile, just the Nationals and the Marlins we can just brush under the rug for right now. They don't
Hmm.
really stand a chance unless something completely absurd happens. But it's gonna be down to the wire. I think it'll probably come down to the final day. I think it'll come down to the final game 162.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. All right, I guess we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the NL Central. So Matt, both of our teams are in here, but I'll kind of give the rundown of the Central, and then I can discuss my team, and then we'll discuss your team, and then final projections. So this um this is the worst division in baseball. I'll put it. I won't put it frankly. This is the worst division in my eyes. Uh, but Milwaukee, obviously, they're on an absolute tear. 7-3 in their last 10. They've won 5 straight. 1,000% making it into the playoffs. There's no way they're not. Which honestly, very good for their new manager, Pat Murphy. Good for them. Um, yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I have to say as far as like how it's gone. I mean the Central has been kind of bad all year long, and I think we all expected Milwaukee to still be good, but I did not expect them to be this good. I mean, if we're looking at the standings, the Brewers are number one. The Cubs are 10 out from competing with their first place spot. Cardinals are 12 out, and then the Reds and Pittsburgh are 16, both 16 and a half out. There's no way they're going to compete for that. But as far as like how this might end up, I think that Milwaukee's probably they're going to win the division. I don't see them losing it unless they absolutely just lose every single one of their games, which I doubt happens. But I will say, moving on to my team now, very impressed. Very impressed with how we played our brand of baseball. Um, Matter of fact, I'm gonna pull this statistic up on my cellular device here. My dad sent it to me. So the Cubs offense over the last 8 games, and he sent me this yesterday. So this would have been as of August 31st. The Cubs offense over the last 8 games, we have 98 hits, 80 runs scored, 43 extra base hits, 18 stolen bases, and 14 home runs. There has been no other team in MLB history that has reached all those numbers over an 8 game span. None.
Wow.
That is insane. Now, the people that looked up that stat, I applaud you. You're a bunch of nerds. No offense. But anyhow, I'm very impressed with how the Cubs have played as of late. I mean, we're 8-2 in our last 10. We've won 5 straight, same as the Brewers. We're winning right now against the Nationals, actually. We're up 7-1 as it currently stands in the top of the 7th. Isaac Paredes and just hit a single, and Bellinger just scored. So thanks for the handy score update. But yeah, that's how the Cubs have been playing as of late, and I'm actually really impressed because we needed to win 70% of our games to even compete for a postseason position. I mean, right now we've done quite a bit of that. I'm not saying we've won 70% of our games yet, and there's still a decent bit of the season to go. We still have the Yankees to play, and we still have the Dodgers to play. So that's 2 very tough competitive teams that we have to play. And do I see us still making the postseason? It's kind of up in the air right now. We still need to play very well, but it's looking good. It's looking very good as far as like where we stand in the wild card. We are currently 4 games back. We're behind the New York Mets, and then the Braves, Padres, and Diamondbacks are all ahead of us. So it's still a very realistic shot. I mean, we're 70-66. Top team in the wild card is the Diamondbacks, so they're 76-60. So I mean, it's there. It's up for grabs, but we have to play very well the rest of the way. Do I think we could have been better and not gotten ourselves into this position over the course of the season? 1,000%. But honestly, I'm glad that we are getting hot now. That's my take on my team. I'll go ahead and let Matt speak on the Cardinals, and then we'll finish up our projections for the rest of the year.
Speak on this depressing team. I mean, I'm just very disappointed in this team, truthfully. I feel like we had a team that could have won the division. And even with, I will say, with our nursing home of a pitching staff, They still pitched quite well sometimes this year, but a lot of times we just can't close out games, or our offense doesn't come through. Our two main producers of offense, being Arenado and Goldie, just have not performed up to their standards this year. Now, I think they could turn it around next year, but I think we need a change in the front office. I don't see us contending the rest of this year. We just now got back to 500, and we are currently uh, only up by 2 to the Yankees when we were just up by 5. So that turned around pretty quick. Um, could something drastic happen and we make it? Sure. Do I think that would happen? No, because I think we have the fourth or fifth toughest schedule to finish out the year. And if we have to face those contending teams like the Brewers, the Phillies, or the Dodgers, it's just not going to happen. Hopefully next year's different. But I think it's just about a wrap on our season this year.
Yeah, truly unfortunate too. Like I stated in the very first episode, I talked to Matt and Caleb over the first couple months of the season. I thought for sure that this was going to be a lot better and more competitive of a division, much like I thought it was going to be much like the AL Central, where all three of us were really fighting for that division title. But obviously, that's not the case this year. But that's like I said that earlier in this video, that's what makes baseball so special. The turnaround is so different year to year. You never know what's going to happen. Caleb, any thoughts on the Central before we move on?
I feel like I feel like Milwaukee's running away with it. Honestly, that's the only thing I can say. I mean, and they're really close. I mean, they're tied with Philly for the best record, and they're nipping at the heels of having the best record from the Dodgers. So it's going to be interesting to see who might take the best record in the National League come the end of the year. As far as the wild card race in the Central goes, I feel like maybe Chicago might have the ability to get there. I feel like it might be a little too late for St. Louis. Definitely too late for Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, but
Definitely.
I've definitely been wrong before, so I guess we'll see how everything shakes out. We'll definitely keep a close eye on it, getting down to the wire here.
Right. Yeah, definitely we'll have to come back here in a couple weeks and see where we stand. Hopefully, I'm hoping that, like I said, my goal, and I stated this in the first podcast episode. I'll keep it a little bit shorter on the Central because I go on and on about the Cubs all day, and I know we don't want that. But I stated in the podcast episode. I mean, I just hope that we either get above 500, which we've done, or we end the year right at 500. I think that'd be the highest notes for us to possibly hit. But I mean, now I guess the goal is let's see if we can make this thing. Like I said, I don't see us necessarily contending, but I mean, who knows? We could be a Cinderella story. I doubt it, but who knows what happens? It's baseball. Okay, so we'll move on to the last division in the National League, and then we will finally go to the college football weekend recap. So, NL West. My thoughts on the NL West so far. Dodgers are in the lead. Got a pretty comfortable lead of 6 games. Had the best record in the National League. Matter of fact, is that all of baseball as well? Yes, all of baseball. So, yes, they have 82 wins as it stands right now on September 1st. 82-54. They are on a huge tear right now. They've won 4 straight. In their last 10, they are 8-2. This team is pretty good. This team is pretty darn good. I don't see Arizona or San Diego making a run at the division at all for the rest of the year. Matter of fact, both those teams are kind of skidding as of late. The Diamondbacks have lost 3 straight, and they're 6-4 in their last 10. And the Padres have lost 1 straight. Well, they just lost yesterday, I guess, and they're 5-5 in their last 10. I do still see all 3 of those teams making the postseason possibly, depending upon how this wild card race pans out for every single team. Obviously, I hope one of those teams gets knocked out so the Cubs can get in, but we'll we'll see what happens when it gets down to it. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have on the NL West. It hasn't really changed much for me. Like I said, I think that Arizona and the Padres are competing for that wild card spot, and then the Dodgers, they've got the division pretty comfortably. So, any thoughts on you guys that are different?
No, I don't got anything. I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's really LA's division, and those other teams are just playing in it.
Mm-hmm. Usually how it goes.
I mean,
Anything, Matt?
Well, there about a couple weeks ago, I thought that just a couple losses from the Dodgers and a couple wins from the Diamondbacks could have the division. Because not too long ago, they were only 3 out. But now that they're 6 out, it's the Dodgers division, and it honestly, truthfully, has been since day one. It usually is.
Yeah. Caleb, you were saying something before I cut you off, and I apologize. Did you have something to say?
it's just I mean that's my thing, and we can sit there and we can talk about it all the time, and the LA fans will say we're just kind of hating, but it's easy for them to be able to run away with that division because look at how much money they put into that roster. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's insane. If if any of these other teams threw all that money into their roster, it would barely it would be like a down to the wire contest for the all of the teams.
Right. Right. Okay. I guess we will move on to our college football weekend recap. Sorry, the standings kind of took a little bit. Hopefully this one will take not so much longer. But so I guess I can go first on how this worked. Uh, Caleb picked 2 games to watch, and I picked 2 games to watch, and Matt picked. Did you watch 2 games, or did you just watch the? No, you did. You watched the 2. You did.
I
Okay.
watched like 1.5,
Or well,
to
yeah,
be
one and a
honest.
half. Yeah.
But
To
yeah,
be fair, I did about the same thing because
Same here.
the
Same
games
here.
because one of the games I watched I was not too interested in after the second half because it kind of got a little lopsided pretty quickly, but the other one I watched the whole entirety of.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'll do mine first. So the two games that I focused on this week, or well this weekend I should say, was Georgia and Clemson and Notre Dame and Texas A&M. Now, as if you don't know, if you haven't watched the first episode, I am a Notre Dame fan. So I was really excited for that one, but I'll discuss Georgia Clemson first. So a couple of the notes I took down. I'm not going to go over every single one. Um, Defense on both sides of the ball were really good the first half. There were 6 total points scored, and all those were for Georgia. I got to give it to Clemson for that first half at least. They held the number one to 6 points. That is very, very impressive. Now, Clemson also defended the run super well, and that's kind of Georgia's calling card is the run. Now, they do have Carson Beck. I know that they can throw the ball downfield, and they proved that in the second half especially. But at one point in time, Clemson held them to 1.5 yards per carry. That's extraordinary. So something to look forward to, I guess, for Clemson fans. I mean, I really didn't expect them to hang with the number one all that much, and they did for the first half for the most part. Like I said, obviously it got out of hand, but yeah, I guess as far as the second half goes, Carson Beck, he as many people in the projections have projected him to be a number one pick. He already looks like a future number one pick. He started throwing the ball very well. Colby Young got the first receiving touchdown for him, and I'll note for them as soon as they came out in the second half, it seemed like they flipped the switch. I mean, they went 75 yards in 6 plays in just under 3 minutes. They ran the third quarter pretty efficiently, finally breaking in, and they only allowed 3 points for Clemson. Georgia did, so that was good. They had a really good interception at one point in time. That's whenever I stopped really watching, but they showed some highlights when they flipped on the Notre Dame and A&M game. Couple other notes that are kind of off topic for the game, but they said it, the announcers did. So there's a new communication system in the helmets for college football. And it looks like the coach can talk to a player until there's 15 seconds left on the play clock. Not sure if anybody else knew that. Did you guys know that?
I didn't know that. That's actually pretty interesting. I saw a picture that one of the football teams had to charge their helmets in the hotel rooms.
Yeah, that kind of brings like a unique thing to it. That's definitely gonna help, I think, especially whenever because I mean, if it's up until there's 15 seconds left, I mean, I guess that means for the defensive coordinators that they have to disguise the defense up until the 15 seconds. So I mean, I suppose until you, I guess I don't know. It's kind of a unique little thing. It kind of throws a wrench in there. You never know what's gonna happen with that. But that's pretty much all I have on the Georgia game. Georgia did end up winning. If you didn't see the final score, I want to say at one point it was like 34-3. I didn't really pay attention to the final score, but they ended up playing their number one ranked team brand of football finally, and they locked it down. But yeah, definitely good for them. Okay, now the Notre Dame versus A&M game. I watched every single second of that game. That was heck of a game. Couple of the things that I put down early. Riley Leonard is the new Notre Dame quarterback. He was going up against his former coach from Duke, who actually accepted the job at Texas A&M. I apologize, I don't have the name. I'm sure Caleb will put it in there. But they mentioned that because Riley Leonard transferred from Duke to Notre Dame, played for. Oh, there it is, Elko. There it is. Yes, Elko. Um, Played for Elko at Duke and was pretty decent there. So I believe he was going into a very hostile environment. Going into Kyle Field, it was the fourth largest crowd in Kyle Field history, actually. And they're actually known, you'll like this, Caleb, if you didn't already know this. They're actually known as the 12th man in college football. I know that the Seahawks have the 12th man in Seattle. They're known as the 12th man there. They've got 12th man signs everywhere. They have the rally towels. They get really, really loud if you did not see or hear anything about them. So
This is all news to me.
very, yeah, very. I know. I mean, I knew about it, but I actually hadn't watched very much on Texas A&M. The last time I really watched a lot of A&M games was when Manziel was playing for him, Johnny Football. So that was a long, long time ago. But it was. If I had to give an overall reaction to the game, it was a defensive dogfight for most of it. I mean, it was tied 6-6 going in at halftime, but and all it was field goals for both sides. Like Notre Dame and both Texas A&M, they would both like put really good drives together, and then they get into opposing field position, and then there'd be a turnover, either on downs, or they would like fumble the ball, or they'd throw an interception. I know that the Texas A&M quarterback threw a couple. But outside of that, like that's all the first half really was. Couple really bad penalties kind of bailed some of Notre Dame out a little bit, as well as Texas A&M. Clap counts on the first drive. Notre Dame's D line was really jumping off sides quite a bit, but outside of that, that's pretty much what the first half was. The one call of the game that I really thought flipped the momentum, and I thought that Notre Dame was going to be out for it. And Caleb sent the picture to me actually in the Discord, and he said, "What do you think? Was it a first down or not?" So, Coach Freeman for the Irish came out aggressive in the second half. He gambled on 2 fourth and shorts. He got one, and then the second one he apparently was short by quite a. I mean, it was like an inch supposedly. I personally think he did get the first down, but that's just me. But to recap it, Notre Dame ended up winning the game. They finally were able to start running the ball. A&M's defense finally kind of let up a little bit. The running lanes are open. A couple bad penalties once again kind of put them in the field position to win the game, and that was actually Notre Dame's first road win against an SEC team since 2004. Sorry, road win against a ranked SEC team. My fault. Ranked SEC team since 2004. So going into that hostile environment, I believe that was a really good win. Um, any thoughts on my games at all from you guys? I'm not sure if any of you were able to catch any of a little bit of my games or not.
I wasn't, honestly, but I was getting updated by you through the Discord chat, which is pretty cool.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so I was kind of following along with you. And when I saw that call, whenever it was the controversial call about whether or not they got the first down, immediately I was like, I should probably text him and see like what does he think, because I thought it was a first. It looked like a first to me,
And I thought it was. I didn't think it was by much, but I definitely thought that he crossed. I mean, I was literally yelling in my living room. I was saying first down, first down, first down, and my fiance was like, "What in the world is the matter with you? You know, like you're getting a little too emotional here." And I was like, "This is a big game, you know." But yeah, regardless, I we won the game. That's what mattered the most. But do you have any remaining thoughts?
I don't, unless Matt, do you have anything?
Okay. Matt, do you have anything at all?
I do not.
Okay. I guess we can move on to your guys' games. Whoever would like to go first, whatever you've got.
I guess I can go. So, so my games were Penn State versus West Virginia in Morgantown, and I also picked Miami versus Florida. For those that didn't watch the first episode, I am a Penn State fan, so it was awesome to watch the absolute beatdown that was that game against West Virginia. In our last 10 matchups versus West Virginia, we beat them 9 times, so that's always a positive. And we actually have not been beaten by West Virginia in Morgantown since 1988.
Wow.
Drew Aller, I mean, the only way I can describe him was nails. That's the only way to describe him. I mean, he had 3 touchdowns all in the first half, went 11 for 17, and had 216 passing yards. And the team as a whole had 457 yards, you know. So, I mean, our rushing attack was really strong too. I mean, Singleton had a 50-yard touchdown and 114 total yards on 13 carries. And then Harrison Wallace, one of our wide receivers, had 5 receptions for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns, which likely came from Aller because he actually got subbed out at the end of the game because it was so lopsided. I will say one thing, though, going into just before halftime, that final drive that we made whenever we scored in like about 10 seconds, Omari Evans should have been called for offensive pass interference. He very clearly pushed off on whoever was defending him, and it didn't get called. So, if there's a West Virginia fan listening, I'm sorry that we didn't get called, but also, you know, the ball was very much in our court, so I don't think, even if it would have gotten called, I don't think it would have been that much to stop us.
No, I don't think so.
Defense was really strong in that game too. I mean, we held them to 246 total yards, and remember, we had 457. And they only got 85 rushing yards against us too.
Yeah, that's definitely a good statement there. I didn't get the total yards for the Notre Dame and Texas A&M game, but let me tell you that, like I said, that first half it was pretty low. both defenses were playing well that game, so it was that was. If you didn't catch that game, I recommend watching some highlights from it. It was very, if you like defensive games, it was very very good. But so your second game, Caleb, what was your second game? Was that the Miami Florida?
Yeah, I watched the
Florida
Miami.
Bowl?
Yeah, the Florida Bowl. Miami, Florida. I guess I should be specific. I don't want to get confused with Miami, Ohio, or something.
Oh, definitely not that one.
So Miami and Florida faced off against each other, and I mean, honestly, it was kind of surprising it was no contest for Miami at all. I mean, Cam Ward absolutely stomped the defense from the Gators. I mean, 26 for 35 for 385 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception the entire game. It was, I mean, it got to the point where I just basically stopped watching because it was just so lopsided. There was no point to continue watching because, you know, they're running away with it so far. It's just, and one thing I will say, Graham Mertz, well wishes to you. The quarterback for the Gators got injured during that game. Definitely not something that you want to have happen, especially in your first game. You know, really, it's tough. So hopefully he'll make it back on the field before the year's out. I don't know the extent of the injury. I'm sure I'll put it in, but hopefully maybe he has a chance to come back for the Gators this year. Um, One thing I want to know your guys' opinions on though, after that dominant performance from Miami, do you think they should be ranked higher than 19th?
Um, that's always such a tough call, especially like week one. And you could almost say the same thing for like A&M. A&M, I think was better than 20th. I mean, it's SEC football; it's always different down there. But you, it's so hard week one. Like I feel like the only teams that are like a quote unquote guaranteed like ranked threat most of the time is like the 1 through 5. 1 through 5. The rest, it's kind of like a toss up. It's like you don't really know. And most of the time, rankings don't usually mean anything. Anybody can beat anybody on a given day. But as far as if Miami's ranks should have been higher, I think after this week they may etch themselves into the top 10. As a matter of fact, I heard some broadcasters saying that they probably will. Um, I think they'll be right at probably number 10, maybe 9. And I think Florida State probably gets pushed out of the top 25 or not top 25, the top 10. They'll still be in the top 25. But yeah, that's my that's my prediction on that. All right, Matt, any notes on your college games or just like quick thoughts? I know you said you didn't really have a whole lot of time to jot any notes down. Now you've been dealing with this illness and everything, so if you don't have a whole lot, that's okay. But so Matt you watched Iowa, Illinois State, and then Michigan and Fresno State, correct?
That is correct. I didn't really catch much of Michigan versus Fresno. The first half, actually the first 3 quarters were just it was very defense heavy. No teams were scoring. Granted, by the end of the third, it was 13-3, but only one touchdown had been scored at that point, and that was Michigan in the very first quarter. So I didn't really catch much of the end. Final score was 30-10, but it seems like they caught steam once that fourth quarter came around with two touchdowns, and a couple field goals to finish out that game. I watched almost all of Iowa versus Illinois, and that was the first half seemed quite boring when I started watching with like 12 minutes left in the second quarter. It only ended up being 6-0 at the half on 2 field goals, and then I don't know what they talked about at halftime, but Iowa's offense picked up. I really like their QB, Cade McNamara, and he was very slow in the first half, but once that second half came around, he was just slinging the football like it was nothing. And his running back, Caleb Johnson, breaks tackles like it's nothing. I just love the look of this team. The score ended up being 40-0. Complete blowout. Their defense never let Illinois within field goal range ever that whole game.
Wow.
That's impressive. And I mean,
Very impressive.
that's my thing though, is that, you know, speaking as somebody who did attend Illinois State for 2 years, who went to school there, of course I didn't attend in 2020, but I went to the homecoming game in 2021 against North Dakota State, and I can speak without a doubt in the back of my mind, Illinois State's not a football college. They are not a football school, for God's sake. What I will say, they are a volleyball school because they went pretty far in the volleyball tournament.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I thought I heard that.
I
Yeah.
thought they made it to like almost like the semifinals or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But no, they are not a football school. That's no hate against Illinois State, but it's just you can tell like they can get some, they can win some games, but not against big power schools like Iowa or anything like that.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other last minute thoughts from your college games this weekend? I don't have any. So.
I mean, we do have to make the announcement that we can officially say that Matt has elected his
Oh
favorite
yes, that
college
is
team.
correct. That is correct. Congratulations, Matt. So yeah, Matt has officially become a true college football fan. He has announced his team. So we'll go ahead and we'll let you say who it is.
I have come to the conclusion that I will be rooting for Iowa this year.
Nice little horn and applause there. Yep, that's as far as I can say, that's definitely a good school to root for. I like Iowa. They have a lot of good things about them, and I'm sure you're going to be able to find that out as you watch more and more games. Hopefully this year, they have the one of the best traditions in football, the Kinnick Wave. If you haven't ever heard of that or seen it, it's Children's Hospital that's across the stadium, and people at Kinnick, they always both the away team, the home team, and all the fans before the opening kickoff, they always look up to the stand or look up to the Children's Hospital across the way, and they wave at the kids. One of the best things in sports.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because that makes those kids' days. Especially because it's
Yeah,
hard for them already being in the hospital, but knowing that they've got this football team and all the fans down there acknowledging them, pulling for them, hoping they make a recovery, that's got to mean the world to them.
yeah, that's definitely an awesome thing. I one of my goals is to make it to Iowa Stadium and do that at least once in my life. Like I said, I know I'm not an Iowa fan, but that's something special for sure. Um, okay, so I guess we will go ahead and we will move on if we don't have anything else to add for college football. Once again, congrats, Matt. So the next thing
Woo!
that we had on our list, I believe was the Wheel of Nostalgia. Yep, that's it. Yep, Wheel of
Yes,
Nostalgia.
sir.
So I will go ahead and I will share my screen. And as I'm sharing my screen, I'll go ahead and I will kind of discuss it again for those of you that did not watch the last episode. So, okay, my screen is live now. So, how the Wheel of Nostalgia works, we each uh, we each nominate players to be on this wheel, and they can either be from your team or not from your team, and they don't even have to be super good. It's just somebody you remember, and whoever it lands on will announce who picked that person. That person will discuss things they remember or liked about that player. Um, and then the rest of the crew will essentially talk on them and say what they remember about that player. If they don't remember anything about that player, it's not necessarily the end of the world, but that's just how it is. So last time Prince Fielder won, and we all discussed a little bit about him, but we took him off the Wheel of Nostalgia, and he will not be allowed to be on here again. But it's not to say that we'll never talk about Prince Fielder again. He just will not be on the Wheel of Nostalgia. So without further ado, here comes the next spin. So next person is another one of Matt's picks, Oscar Taveras. So he will now be removed. Oscar will not be talked about again on the Wheel of Nostalgia. But Matt, I know this is definitely probably a touchy subject for you, especially because he was a St. Louis Cardinal, I know, and everything else. So I will let you open the floor, and we will discuss about Oscar Taveras. So
A few sports fans out there don't know. Oscar Taveras was a right fielder for the Cardinals back in 2014. He was 22 at the time when we called him up, but he showed lots of promise. He only played 80 games, but he seemed to be very solid, working on things every day. And at the time, I figured he would be the future of St. Louis. He'd be with us for a while, keep growing, become the better guy. I know he had a clutch walk-off home run, I'm pretty sure, back in 2014.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But at quickly made a bad turn, as we did not make we did make the postseason that year, but that was also the year that I have bad memories from, getting eliminated by the Giants. But he sadly passed away in a car accident in the Dominican Republic. I just get very nostalgic about him, thinking about what he could have been, how he could have helped our franchise, what kind of player he could have been now, as it has almost been 10 years since he passed. Wish that wouldn't have happened, because I would have loved to see how his career would have turned out. But sadly, we shall never know.
Yeah. All good points on Oscar there. Guess I'll go next on him. So yeah, Oscar Taveras, he, like Matt said, definitely was probably the future of the St. Louis Cardinals organization. From the games that I watched of him, just looked like an absolute stud. If I had to compare him to somebody else today, he reminded me a lot of like what Giancarlo Stanton was at the very beginning of his career. Kind of just a mix, like a mixed bag, had a lot of pop, but he also played the game like it was supposed to. You know, he would always come up. He wasn't always looking to go deep every single play. He would put the ball in play, make sure that his team could either a score off of him getting on, or he would also make sure that the team would score just because he put the ball in play. You know, he wasn't always trying to go deep like it is nowadays. Um, Definitely devastating loss for him after he passed away. I remember a lot of St. Louis Cardinal fans being upset around that time. Um, Definitely sucks losing a player like that. I know that Caleb's team actually had that also happen, with Yordano Ventura as well. So I know that's kind of a touchy subject as well with Royals fans, but you know it's part of the game, and I hate to say that, but especially with driving in other countries like that, you know, it's different over there. It's not, you know, how we have our normal U.S. laws here. It can be a very dangerous place to drive, and I believe that that's ultimately what caused Oscar's apparent death. So that's all that I really have on Oscar. Do you have anything, Caleb, or anything you want to add possibly on the Yordano Ventura mark I made there?
Actually, yeah, that was what I was going to get ready to bring up. I remember, right, because this happened right before, or it was probably during the 2014 World Series where the Giants were playing the Royals, and right before the game, they held a moment of silence at Kauffman Stadium in Oscar Taveras' honor. And then in Game 6 of the World Series, Yordano Ventura was pitching for Kansas City, and he ran out and was wearing a hat that said "Rest in Peace, OT number 18." And he actually went 7 innings and didn't give up a single run, had 4 strikeouts that game, and ended up forcing Game 7, which we would eventually go on to lose the World Series. But he took that hat that he wore in that game is actually in the Baseball Hall of Fame currently. But I feel like Taveras would have been a great player for St. Louis, and one of my favorite memories of him has to be when he was in the game and they had no clue who he was on the broadcast, so they just wrote him in as minor league guy. So, but yeah, it's just very unfortunate, you know, that he went as quick as he did. So young. I mean, excuse me. How old was he again?
Believe it.
22.
Yeah, I was gonna say very early 20s. I remember
Yeah,
he was very
that's
young.
that's really tough. I mean, I feel like he had a lot of potential in him. Everybody was touting him as the next big thing, and then just to have it cut so short, it's just a shame. But that's really all I have to say on it. And I mean, it's like you said, Giordano Ventura had the same thing happen, and that was just a couple years later.
Yeah.
In the same place too, in
Yeah.
the in the Dominican.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. But as I stated, so yeah, Oscar will be removed off the list. Not to say he will never be talked about again. May he rest in peace, like we all have stated in our statements about him. But yeah, he'll be removed from the wheel of nostalgia, so he's gone. So these are the remaining names that are left to go on the wheel of nostalgia. So Matt's picks are pretty much done, but it's Caleb and I's picks now. But after all of these names have been through, we will recycle through. If you guys have any names that you would like to possibly add that we might consider, comment down below, and we will be able to do so. So yeah, so we will move on to our final segment of this podcast. Hopefully, we're doing a lot better on time than we were on the last one.
Oh, I'm sure we are.
Yeah, I hope so. The last one was kind of a long one. But the last ones that we have, so it's player spotlight / award winners for both the NFL and the MLB. I suppose what I really just planned on doing, I'm going to just kind of for the NFL. These are pretty much going to be pretty quick. I'm pretty much just going to name my guys, might say a little bit about them. That's pretty much all I've got. Like I'm not going to like draw out these long explanations because we don't really know yet in the NFL. God forbid some of these guys could go out there week one and get injured and be done for the whole year. So it's kind of tough to tell with the NFL. Whereas the MLB, we can kind of throw some stats in as far as like who we think is going to take it home. Could it change? Definitely, but we'll see. But as far as the NFL goes, so I guess my top picks for MVP right now. Obviously, you got to throw Patrick Mahomes in. Just the impact he does every single year with the Chiefs. I mean, my goodness, he's been to the Super Bowl countless times over the last couple of years. As much as I mean, I don't necessarily want to say hate to say, but I mean, you definitely want to see some turnaround in the league. It makes it a little bit more interesting. But yeah, for lack of better terms, as much as I hate to say it, he is probably considered the best quarterback in the NFL right now, if not top three. He gets it done with a lot of the teams that he has every single year. And I mean, every single year of his career, outside of the year he didn't start at quarterback, he's made it to bare minimum the AFC Championship game. Every single year. And I mean, that just says something about like as him as a player. I mean, and you could argue with me in the comments saying like, oh well, he had Tyreek Hill at one point in time. Oh, he had Travis Kelce at one point in time. Oh, he had a great running game with Edwards-Helaire and Pacheco and all these other guys that were behind him. But or you can complain about the referees with the penalties, which I do believe is definitely a possible issue. But you can't deny his skill that he has. You can't. He's a good quarterback, very good quarterback. If I were to pick somebody behind him, and this one might be a little bit more of a bolder one, it'd probably be Josh Allen. I know that he's probably going to. We're really going to try and find out who Josh Allen is this season, just because he lost his number one target with Stephon Diggs. Bills are still a pretty good team, but I think he's definitely going to have to be the superstar on that team to really will their way back. Any of you guys have any different picks for NFL MVP?
I have one. I only for all the awards I only put one just because it's just kind of very early projections. I feel like this is something we can come look at maybe about halfway through the season and like toward the end of the season again. Mm-hmm. I have a really dark horse MVP pick. It'd be
Okay.
interesting to see if he could do it. I mean, he just got some new weapons in the offseason, and my pick would have to be CJ Stroud. And the reason I say Stroud, yeah, I knew it was going to get a little wild, but like I said, he just got some new weapons. You know, he's got Diggs, he's still got Tank Dell, he's got Nico Collins, Joe Mixon, right? Signed with them, I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, I just feel like if as long as things go right, you know, maybe he's got a chance. I mean, I'm not gonna say Mahomes ain't gonna, you know, have a good shot at it either, but um, I feel like Stroud's one of those guys that can sneak in there and definitely make some noise. Just I feel like it'd be different because outside of Kelsey and Pacheco and everybody, I mean, you don't, Mahomes doesn't really have like these big name receivers. Yeah, he's got Hollywood Brown, but he's going to be out for a little while. I think they said he's out for at least week 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I feel like it's like I said. I think I said it in the last episode. As long as Diggs can keep his head and realize that he's probably not going to be the number one option for CJ Stroud. He's going to be looking around at all his different options. As long as Stephon Diggs can keep it together and not lose his cool, I feel like Stroud might make a actual run at getting the MVP.
Definitely could. Definitely could. Matt, you got any different picks?
I had one pick. Well, I guess two, because like you said, you can't really just count out Mahomes. Him or I think Lamar could go back to back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all those picks are really good. All those picks are definitely probably going to be in the top. The Stroud one will be time will tell with that one, but I definitely don't think that it's out of the question. I just think that it's going to be tough for him to beat out Pat or Lamar or Josh, any of those three. But I definitely can see him there. Okay, moving on. So NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. So here's where I kind of this one I kind of did a mixed bag. The Defensive Rookie of the Year was kind of a tough one for me to pick, but Offensive Rookie of the Year and like Defensive Player of the Year, any of those ones where like they have an award for both leagues. I tried to include a player from both the NFC and AFC. So um So offensive rookie of the year. I think for the NFC, it's probably gonna be Caleb Williams. Reason why looked amazing in his starts in the preseason. I know it's just preseason, but he looked pretty good. The Bears have a lot of weapons around him. He is pretty much there to succeed. I think that they have given him all the tools now the front office and everybody else is pretty much just telling him you need to go prove it. Like you need to go prove that you can do this. And I think that he's got the tools around him, like I said. Um for the AFC, and this one might be kind of a little bit of a dark horse pick here, but for me personally, I think Bo Nix for the AFC. Um I think he also looked very good in the preseason. He's got decent players around him. It's just a matter of how he leads this Broncos team. Um, yeah, I mean that's all there really is to that. I mean it's a matter of how he really leads this Broncos team, and because I mean if his defense isn't going to perform all that well behind him, they're really going to rely on him offensively to do what he needs to do. But I think that he has a good shot. Okay, any of you guys have any different players?
Um, I didn't for offensive rookie of the year. I had Bo Nix on my thing. Um, I know that the main focus for offensive rookie of the year is definitely going to be Caleb Williams, but I feel like Bo Nix has had a great preseason. I feel like he's he's under a great coach.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Payton's a legend. His biggest test is going to be week 1 on the road at Seattle. I am
Mm-hmm.
excited for that matchup because I feel like, Seattle didn't really get much better. I mean, yeah, we have weapons, but don't get me wrong. It's just we barely squeaked out that victory against the Broncos last year, was it? Or no, the year before.
Year before, yeah.
We barely squeaked it out against them, and Gino's not getting any better. He's just kind of staying basically mediocre. He's been okay, but he's not been light up the charts. So I definitely think Bo Nix is somebody to keep your eye on if you're looking into offensive rookie of the year. I'm not saying that he'll get it over Caleb Williams, but I feel like he's got one heck of a shot.
Well, good thing is though they do separate those awards for the NFL. The only ones that are like for NFC AFC, the only awards that are like officially like anybody could win out of both, and it's only one player out of both the divisions is MVP and Coach of the Year. So that is the good thing. But yeah, if it were to come down to like the better rookie out of the two, yeah, that's tough to call. Tough to call as of right now. Okay, so moving on to defensive rookie of the year, I really only put one person down for this, and he actually just got he just was drafted last year. Laiatu Latu. I think that he's going to be a very good defensive player. Was very good in college. He just needs the correct type of schemes, and I think that with where he's playing at now, out in excuse me, out at the Colts, the defensive coordinator there is going to be, I think that's going to be the team that's going to really test him, because I think that the Colts really need to have a good defense in general to compete in the AFC South. So time will tell with that pick, but that's who I have right now. Any other ones?
And this is for defensive rookie of the year.
Yes.
Um, well, I definitely have, like I said, I really only wrote down one for each of these because I didn't know. I was kind of unfamiliar with the awards.
Mm-hmm.
I got it confused, but I got a bold pick for defensive rookie of the year. A biased pick for sure, but my pick I'm kind of leaning towards Byron Murphy II from the Seahawks, and here's why. He's a dark horse candidate, I know, but if you think about it, Mike McDonald just got signed to be the head coach for the Seahawks. Pete Carroll got stepped down. That was a huge shock, by the way. When I heard that he was gone, I was like, are you kidding? But Mike McDonald's focused mainly on defense. He's coming from the Ravens system, and that defense was pretty strong. I mean, it almost got him to the Super Bowl. So I feel like kind of intermixing with everybody, getting to learn how Mike McDonald's going to run the entire organization. I feel like it could make the difference, and it could make him a great player. It's just we have so many big things that we've lost, and that's what really hurts us the most. I mean, like losing Bobby Wagner was a huge hit. That really kind of irks me, but at the same time, I knew it was probably going to happen. But yeah, that's basically my main pick for defensive rookie of the year.
Mm-hmm. Any other different picks for Matt?
I didn't have a pick. The only two picks I had was one for MVP and one for offensive rookie of the year. That was it.
Oh, okay. That's all right. Okay, so I guess the other ones that I'll run down with. I mean, I'm not going to spend too much time on these ones. You guys pretty much know who the rest of these people are. So defensive player of the year. Right now, I just have T.J. Watt from the Steelers and Micah Parsons from the Cowboys. Both are very good defensive players. They proved it last year. I especially know with Micah Parsons in my division. And then coach of the year. This one might be a little tough. Personally, this one might be a bold pick, but Matt Eberflus is who I'm going with for Coach of the Year. If the Bears can contend and possibly threaten the NFC North, essentially get better from last year and put them in a playoff spot, possibly win a game. Could easily see Eberflus winning this, especially since he just had like what, a 5-win season. It wasn't very good.
Yeah, I don't think they won very much.
Yeah, I'll have to look at their record from last season real quick. I meant to put that in. Bears record 2023. They were, oh no, sorry, Bears fans. I touted you a little less than what you had. You had 7 wins. You were 7-10. But if they can improve and just win, like kind of had like a year the Packers had, maybe like uh 10 win season, maybe a 9 win season, and possibly sneak their way into the playoffs and win a game. Who knows? They could be. He could be the coach of the year. Caleb, you have somebody different?
For my offensive player of the year, and basically running down what you did, for offensive players of the year from both sides, I picked Christian McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill. For defensive player of the year, I picked Aiden Hutchinson and TJ Watt. And then for coach of the year, following in line with my MVP prediction, I think D'Amico Ryans could possibly be the coach of the year. I feel like he really has turned around Texas ever since they lost. What's his name? I can't think of it off the top of my head.
The Texans' old coach?
No, not the coach, the quarterback.
Oh, the Texans quarterback.
Yeah, he plays for Cleveland now. I mean, God, I'm making myself look
Oh,
so
Deshaun?
stupid. Yeah, Deshaun Watson.
Oh, I
I
thought you were talking about the quarterback after Deshaun Watson. I was like,
No, he's definitely. I mean, D'Amico has definitely turned that around ever since they lost Watson. It wasn't really good over there, but then they picked up Stroud, and they picked up all these guys in the draft, and then they're picking up guys in free agency, and it's just that ball is rolling and rolling, and I feel like they might have a real shot to contend, and I feel like he might have a real shot at getting the coach of the year because I feel like he's really going to turn this organization around as a whole.
Yep. Yep. I forgot to add in offensive player of the year, so that's actually my fault. I'd have to agree with what you put, McCaffrey and Hill. I think Tyreek kind of, I don't want to say he was robbed out of it because McCaffrey had an incredible year, but Hill kind of, I mean, he had the injury towards the end of the year, I believe. Is that right, Matt? He had the injury?
I think so.
Yeah.
I can't remember if we had him for that wild card game or not.
He was there for that, but I think he like had something that happened to him, and he like really slowed down from what had happened. Because he was on pace to like have this career year at receiver, and he did have a good year still, but like he was set to like break all sorts of records and whatnot because he was just going off. But I think he got hurt or something had happened. I can't exactly remember, but yeah, I'm gonna lean more towards Tyreek this year, though. We'll see what happens. Like I said, it's a little too early to tell right now. We haven't even played 1 week, or we haven't played a week 1 game yet as of this podcast. So, okay, I guess we'll move on to MLB, and then that'll be kind of a wrap for what we're gonna do. Oh, I guess we can announce to them our next idea, but we'll wait till after we do our award winners. The thing that you and I were talking about earlier today, Caleb.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the MLB, this one's going to be a little bit more. You can kind of discuss some things. I'm going to pull up Baseball Reference just so I have some statistics right here. That way, Caleb doesn't have to correct me for 1,000 things that I say wrong, probably. But so I kind of did the similar thing for like the MLB because how the MLB works is pretty much the same thing as the NFL, besides the MVP thing. The MVP, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, all those that Manager of the Year. You have an NL winner and you have an AL winner, so it could be a player out of both leagues. So I put 2 players down for each of those awards. So the ones I'm doing is MVP, Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, Manager of the Year. I'm not doing any of the postseason MVP stuff. We're not even to the postseason yet, so it'd be kind of dumb to even like say who we think is going to be the postseason MVP. Plus, like the comeback player of the year, it's kind of a harder one to break down. I'd have to really do some research into that one. But the MVP Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, and Manager of the Year awards are kind of easier to break down. So without further ado, my AL winner, I think that this one should. For me, it's a no-brainer personally. Aaron Judge. I think he's going to win the MVP again. Dude was just an absolute stud this season. As it stands right now in September, as of September 1st, he has 51 home runs, 123 RBIs. He's been walked 111 times, which is actually, as of right now, he is tied for the amount of walks that he had in his MVP year whenever he hit 62 home runs. Um, he's been an all-star this year. He has an OPS of 1.184, which is more than he had in his MVP year. Slugging percentage is .721. His batting average is higher than it was in his MVP year. He's hitting .330 on the year. I mean, I know there's still some games left to go, but not to mention he's played in 134 games too this season, which is actually pretty good, considering a lot of the times he's been injured quite a bit. So I mean that's just extraordinary for him. And career wise, this year he had hit his 300th homer already, so good for him. Anybody have any different AL MVP suggestions?
I am incredibly stuck in my ways. I am incredibly biased. I know it will never happen unless something extraordinary happens. But my pick for MVP is Bobby Witt Jr. And the only reason why I pick him is because of the fact that he came into this team kind of a fish out of water, just trying to get his legs about him, and he's made an impact every single year. And he just continues to get better. He hasn't had a down year. I mean, he's had bad games here and there, but that's normal in baseball. It's 162 games. But what he's doing is just, he's one of a kind. And it's something that is incredible to see. I mean, I always get excited watching Royals games just to watch him come out on the field and everything, and I'm just impressed every time. He always does something different, It's incredible to watch, I just my thing is that I know for a fact that they'll end up giving it to Judge, and that's only because of the fact that he's on pace for 60 home runs, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yep. He's as long as he hits, 10 home runs within the course of this month, which is very doable. He'll be one shy of what he had in 22. So
yeah, and that's my thing is that I a lot of people call it the East Coast bias. Whenever Tyreek Woolen and Kenneth Walker were snubbed from the offensive rookie and defensive rookie of the year in the NFL during their rookie year, and it was given to Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson.
right.
So you can say that that's partially why they're going to give it to Judge over that, but at the same time, you got to recognize that Judge is just Judge is on a different level. He's in a completely different zip code. And, while I would like to see Bobby Witt Jr. get an MVP, and I feel like he will before his career's up, I just feel like it's not in the cards this year.
Yeah. The thing I will say about Witt, I think that he will definitely be in the running, and you and I were kind of discussing this a little bit ago. I think that he'll be in the running. He's a true 5-tool player. I love watching Bobby Witt play. I'm a big Bobby Witt fan. Even though I'm not a Royals fan, I like watching him play. He's got, this year he is one shy of tying his career high for homers, which he will do. And if not break it, I bet he'll probably finish out with 35 for the year. He's got 27 stolen bases. His batting average is levels better than what it was last year. He's lowered his strikeouts by over 30. His OPS is 1.004. He's a strong candidate. It's just, like you said, Judge is on a completely different planet right now. In an age where Aaron Judge doesn't exist in the American League, maybe. I could maybe, if not definitely, see Bobby Witt winning the MVP. The only one that I'd maybe that would maybe contend for him is Caleb's absolute second favorite player in the entire MLB, Gunnar Henderson. Everybody loves him.
Oh, yeah. Connor Henderson, my
Yeah.
favorite.
But yeah, realistically speaking, yes, I do agree that I think that um, Bobby Witt would definitely be in the running in a world where, and if not, win the MVP when Aaron Judge doesn't exist. Matt, do you have any other other picks for MVP for the MLB and the American League?
No, I think it's got to be Judge. I mean, it would be great to see Bobby win it, but I just think Judge is having too much of a monster season, and he's got more to come too. But this year, he's just been unstoppable across the board.
Yep. I guess we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the last, or not the last, sorry, the NL MVP topic. Um, I know that all three of us in here, and I mean, and this doesn't take anything away from this player. It doesn't, but you know, it's almost like you kind of get tired of seeing the same people win over and over and over and over and over and over again sometimes, but I appreciate what this player has done for the game. I think he's definitely changed the game um in this day and age, but I think the National League MVP it's probably going to go to Otani. Um I mean, some of his stats for this year, he's got 44 home runs, he's got a 293 batting average. His RBIs, he's almost at 100. He's got 43 stolen bases. You know, he's a very versatile player, and he's kept up his level of play. Um, he he's already won the MVP award 2 times. He was an All Star this year, of course. He's I mean, he's phenomenal. I'll put it that way. He's phenomenal. Now, do I think that he kind of gets a little overvalued just because he can do what he can do at the major league level? Yes. I think that people act like he's God walking on earth sometimes. And I think that's a little bit far of a stretch. Now, would I love to have him on the Chicago Cubs? Oh, absolutely, I would. Who would? But I think that he's gonna be the MVP again, just because I mean he won the MVP last year in the National League, and he had the same amount of home runs he has right now, and he had less RBIs last year. The only thing that last year that he had better was his on base percentage and average, and his OPS just slightly. The rest of the stuff is pretty identical, if not the same, if not better. You know, there's he's very impressive. I'll give it to him. He's very impressive. So that's my pick for the NL MVP. As much as there's other people that I'm sure that would contend for it had Otani not existed, but we're in a world with Shohei Otani, so it's different. So, any different takes from you guys?
I don't really have anything different to put in there, but yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I mean, there's definitely a lot that goes on that they will focus. Like ESPN writers will definitely do whatever they can to get Otani's name in there, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I remember somebody did something. I think it was like they had a shutout game, and they put his name or whatever, and then they said, and Shohei Otani hits a home run on behind that, and didn't even have the other guy's name picture on there. Just had Otani's picture, as if the shutout game wasn't that big of a thing, that big of a deal. And I'm not saying that um, what he's done for the game of baseball is a bad thing. I feel like he adds a lot to it. I mean, a lot of guys are trying to model themselves around Otani now that he's becoming the next Derek Jeter. I mean,
Hmm.
that's just in my opinion. I mean, look at the guy that Kansas City just drafted, Jack Caglione. I mean, he's a two-way player, and he said, "I want to be like Shohei Otani." And even JJ Piccolo, the GM for the Royals, said, "We're gonna let him do it. If he wants to be a two-way player, we're gonna let him." So I'm
Right.
excited to see how he pans out. I mean, he already made it from rookie ball to high A ball in Quad Cities. So we'll definitely see how his career pans out. But yeah, I think Shohei does a lot of good for the majors, but they choose to talk about him way too much.
Yeah. I will say this about him, though, that I do think this is a little impressive. Is I'm looking through on Baseball Reference at the National League batting leaders. He is pretty much in the top 5, if not the leader, in almost every single category. Wins above replacement, number 1. Uh, offensive WAR, number 1. Batting average, he's top 5. He's number 5 in the NL. On base percentage, he's number 5 in the NL. Slugging, he's number 1. On base plus slugging is number 1 with a .999. That's crazy. At bats, he's number 4. Plate appearances, number 2. Runs scored, he's number 1. Triples, he's tied for 5th. Doubles, oh no, he isn't in doubles. My fault. Total bases, he's number 1. It's you can go down the list. I mean, it's pretty impressive the fact that he is on like all those lists. I will give him that. So yeah, I think he's definitely going to get it. He's definitely going to get the award. I don't really see anybody else beating him out for it, but there are other players that are very good that aren't talked about enough. I feel like just because he overshadows them. I definitely agree. Matt, your take on it?
He'll get it, and I mean, even if there was someone else contending for it, I think they would still give it to him, just because I feel like he is MLB's golden boy right now, and will be for the next few years. And like Caleb said, I think they do talk about him a little bit too much. Is it great what he's doing? Yeah, I applaud him for doing what he can do, but at the end of the day, there are other baseball players to talk about, and I think had Acuna not got hurt, I think Acuna might have fought him for it, but Acuna got hurt, so and really I don't think I could think of anybody who would be competing with him right now off the top of my head. I'd have to look, but he'll get it. He'll get it.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So, moving on. So we'll talk about the rookie of the years. So for the NL, kind of a dogfight right now. But I personally think that this player is going to pull away with it. I think Paul Skeens is going to get it. Um, Jackson Merrill, I don't want to take anything away from him. He's been playing a heck of a year right now with the San Diego Padres. A great addition for that squad, but I feel like the impact that Skeens has made in the short amount of time he's been on the Pirates has been just insane. I mean, in 18 games started, he's 8-2, 2.23 ERA with 109 innings pitched, already 136 strikeouts. Um, and he has a 0.954 whip. That's
Wow.
pretty. That is pretty good. Pretty hard to beat. Um, and the team he plays on, no offense to Pirates fans, team he plays on is pretty bad. I mean, it's ridiculous how good of a player he is. I mean, 11.2 strikeouts per 9 is his average right now as well. And he's a rookie. It should be only up from here, hopefully. Should be. But that's my pick for the National League Rookie of the Year. And any of you guys have anything different?
I don't. I mean, I kind of felt like whenever I heard he was getting called up that, I was excited to see how he would do, and then he had such a dominant performance against Chicago, I think.
Oh yeah, the Cubs. The Cubs.
And once I saw that, immediately I was just thinking, okay, yeah. I was like, if he continues this up, he's going to have a strong case for the Rookie of the Year award. And look at where we're at now. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's just basically got it locked in at this point. I mean, and like it's like you said, it's no disrespect to anybody else that was in that running, but it's just he's doing things that really have not been seen in a while.
Right. Not anything different.
I have Merrill.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Um, I do think what Skeens is doing is great, and he obviously he'll be in the running, but I just think the year that Jackson is having, and the impact that he has for the Padres and getting them to where they are now. I mean, they still have that wild card spot, and I think they're going to keep that wild card spot. And I think he's been a big guy to keep them there, and I think that might just give him the edge to get it.
Definitely a strong point. Yeah, I mean, Padres definitely are in a better position than the Pirates right now. I definitely agree. That's definitely a good point. To move on to my AL Rookie of the Year, I I've got Colton Cowser from Baltimore. So Colton Cowser, um, he's doing pretty well for them. He's got 20 home runs, 102 hits on the year, hitting 245. His on base percentage is 322, and he's slugging 448. Um, he had a few games last year for the Orioles and didn't do so hot, but obviously he's been up for the full year this year, or at least most of it, and he's been doing pretty well for the Orioles. I mean, the Orioles are a really good team. Um, Not to say that I don't really think there's any other rookies that have a chance against him, but I think he's definitely got the strongest case for Rookie of the Year, in my opinion, just because he plays for a really good team. And yeah, that's who I've got for AL Rookie of the Year. Any others?
No, I don't have anybody else wrote down. I picked the same thing. I mean, I feel like Kowser's really kind of had it locked down since the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm. Matt, who you got?
I also have Kowser.
Gotcha. Okay, so yeah, we're all on the same page there. All right, so that's one that we're all in agreement with. So good. Well, that was quick then. Probably the quickest segment we've had. um, So moving on to the National League Cy Young, and I know that Caleb and I have a similar pick here. I announced who my pick was earlier, but for you viewers out there, I believe, and this one actually kind of shocked me a little bit. I I thought this guy a few years ago, I thought he was done. I was like, this guy just needs to retire. He's terrible. I don't even know why he's pitching anymore. Like way past his prime, all those things, but he has certainly found his spark again. That's Chris Sale. Chris Sale is 15-3 this year. He has can I find his number? There we go. 197 strikeouts. I sorry, flustered a little bit. Couldn't find his number that I was looking for. Yeah, 197 strikeouts. So he's gonna get to 200. Um, he has a 1.022 whip, and he has really stepped into the quote unquote ace role at age 35 for the Braves, especially with Spencer Strider going down. Him and Ronaldo Lopez have kind of had to hold the hold the ship together because I mean, I'm not sure if you remember, but Strider went down early, like really early, and it was kind of ridiculous at the fact that a lot of people were already counting the Braves out at that point in time. But I mean, Chris Sale is just kind of, I don't want to say has quietly been having himself a good year, because I mean, I think people have noticed it, but at the same time, like, nobody expected this out of Chris Sale. They expected probably like almost like a Charlie Morton role over the last couple of seasons, where he's just kind of been like that veteran guy you kind of go to, give you some innings, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I expected out of him at the best. And he's really shocked me. So I'll give that to Chris Sale. Now, one thing to note about him, and I actually didn't know this, looking at his numbers from previous years, and this is even like with his prime years with Chicago and even early Boston years, he has never once won the Cy Young Award. Not a singular time.
Wow.
However, he has only had one, two, 3 seasons where he's had more wins than he does right now. Could this be the year it gets done? Could this be it? This late in his career, Chris Sale. Who else thinks that who else in here thinks that he's the Cy Young Award winner?
I agree.
I mean, it's a super strong case. I really don't know who you'd pick over him. I really don't. It's such a tough thing to call, really, like, for who you'd put over him. And like I said, Caleb, you agreed, didn't you? You put him as your NL Cy Young pick, right?
Yes, Chris Sale was my NL Cy Young pick, and my thing is that, you're saying who do you pick, who do you put over him? There were talks that there were talks that were saying that Skeens might be in the running for the Cy Young Award for the NL. Not
Okay,
Sale.
that's a little far, in my opinion, for that.
That's what I thought. I thought it was a little far. I feel like give it to, because he hasn't even played a full year. I mean, he came in halfway through the year.
Mm-hmm.
So give it to Sale, because Sale's been here the entire year and has drastically improved.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this almost reminds me of like the Justin Verlander from last year, where nobody really expected him to pop off like he did, and he just destroyed. This really reminds me of that. I guess, yeah, if we're all in agreement with that, I guess we'll move on to the AL Cy Young, which I think this is pretty lopsided in my opinion as well. For the AL, I believe it's going to be Tariq Skubal from the Detroit Tigers. I believe he's had a heck of a year as well. Some of his statistics to read off: he's 16-4 right now, 2.51 ERA. Started in 27 games. He has just over 200 strikeouts with 201, and his WHIP this year is 0.933. Caleb, he plays in your division, so I'll kind of let you talk about Scooble a little bit. Have the Royals had to face him a ton this year? Has it been? I mean, I know that you at least play your division opponents. What is it, 12 times a year?
I think so.
Usually. Used to be a lot more, but now with the 30 games or 30 teams, everybody has to play everybody. That's switched up, but.
Yeah, I mean, we faced Scooble this year. He's not been great against us, though, that's for sure. I mean, this year we've had 4 games against him, or 3 games against him, sorry. And he's 1-2.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And, I'll read off his ERA from those 3 games. The first game he beat us, his ERA was 1.29. The second game he lost, his ERA was 7.20. And then his ERA in the last game was 7.11.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, he really has not played well against the Royals. Granted, the Tigers themselves have not really been very good this season, but he himself has been very well. He got his lone All-Star appearance this year. I do think that he has drastically improved year after year. I mean, outside of this season, his best year was 21, where he won 8 games, but he lost 12. And then the last 2 years, he's won 7 games. So not really super impressive out of him. But I mean, I think he's finally finding his feet And I think if he wins the Cy Young, it's gonna just hopefully continue. Did either of you have a different pick for AL Cy Young?
Um, I mean, I picked the same as you. I mean, deep down, whenever the season first started, if you would have asked me who my pick for Cy Young Award would have been, I would have picked Seth Lugo all day. And that's just
Oh yeah.
because of how great he was to start the season, and it's just slow. He's slowly fallen off. I mean, a lot of people were talking about Cole Reagans being the Cy Young candidate, but
Yep.
I didn't think he had it
Hmm.
in him, and he kind of proved that to me because he kind of blew up. But ever since they moved Lugo into the one spot as our ace, he's just not lived up to the hype. It's just he's been struggling, and I'm not really sure what happened, but hopefully he can get it back under control. Getting down to the wire here.
Right. Matt, anything different?
Nope. I also had Skubal.
All right. Okay, I guess the last ones, and these ones should be pretty easy. Just mainly just talking about the team success. So, manager of the year conversations. I believe that the Guardians manager Stephen Vogt is going to be the winner. Led the Guardians to such a great record. They're looking like the number one team. Like one of the, or sorry, I shouldn't say the number one team. One of the number one teams out there. Very good in the AL Central. They pretty much held the first place spot for a majority of the year. They are, yeah, that's just great for them. Um, any of you guys have any different AL suggestions for that?
I also had Stephen Vogt, just because this is his first year managing any kind of team, correct?
I
Because I feel like he just retired from baseball
Yeah, let
last
me.
year or the year before.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull that up.
Yep. Well,
He
he technically was a coach
retired.
for the Mariners, but he wasn't a manager.
Yeah, looks like he retired from Oakland 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 seasons ago is when he retired. So
I feel like, it's your first year as the manager of a team and leading them to, more than likely he's going to lead them to the crown in the AL Central at this point.
Mhm.
I feel like that's good enough to be manager of the year. Your first real test as manager, and you lead your team to this good of a record.
Yeah, most certainly. Um, Caleb, did you have anything different, or did you have him as well?
Um, I had somebody different, and
Oh, oh yeah, that okay.
so my pick for AL Manager of the Year, and it's just because he's turned this team around, and they're firing on all cylinders. It's actually Vogt's rival manager, Matt Quacharo from the Royals. And my whole reasoning for picking Matt Quacharo is just because of how, you know, he came into the team, and in 2 years the team's already improved from where it's been in the last. I mean, I don't want to say 8 years. We're poised to make it to the playoffs for the first time since 2015, and that's something that I didn't think I was going to see for a while. I mean, I was a little nervous whenever we first picked him up because things weren't going so well, and I mean, we started out last year getting swept at home by Minnesota. We started this year almost getting swept by Minnesota, so I thought it was a repeat. But Quacharo does make some questionable decisions, but for the most part, I feel like he's actually done a lot to improve Kansas City.
Right. Okay. Then my NL Manager of the Year award pick. This one was kind of a tough one for me to decide upon initially, and then I kind of looked at just within our division, Matt, and the Brewers are doing very well, and they obviously have a new manager because Craig Counsell, if for those of you that didn't know or have not watched a lot of baseball this year, he is no longer the Brewers manager. He is the Cubs manager, and now Pat Murphy. was promoted to serve as the manager of the Brewers. And obviously kind of, I don't want to say a shock because the Brewers are still a good team, but kind of shocking for the fact that they are record-wise one of the better teams in the National League. And it is his very first year as an actual manager of a team. Well, actually, let me correct that. He was actually an interim manager for the Padres back in 2015. So since 2015, he has not necessarily been a true manager, but he was a coach for the Brewers. So he's kind of been behind the scenes. They know who he is. That Brewers team does, but now he's really stepped up into the role as manager, and he has made it happen. So any differences there for NL Manager of the Year?
No, I'd say that definitely I agree with you. Um, yeah, I mean, look at how good the Brewers are doing. I mean, I know that they made a run in the playoffs last year, but they quickly got stomped by the Diamondbacks. So it wasn't really much of a run, but they're so close, 2 games back from having the lead in the National League and having the best record in the MLB. So, I mean, if that's not a turnaround, I don't know what is. And it's just tough for them, especially because they just lost Christian Yelich. So that's going to be tough for them. But I feel like they've done it this far. They've come this far, and I feel like they've got a good enough system built around that they should be able to manage without him for a little while.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Matt, anybody different?
I had Mike Schilt for the Padres.
Okay.
Just because I he's turned that team around a little bit. I know that they didn't have a horrible season last year, but they also didn't make the playoffs last year. They were close, but they did not get a wild card. They were uh, what in the world? Oh, they were like 5 games back of getting a wild card last year, and now they have pretty much almost solidified their spot of having a wild card this year. They're 2 games up on the Braves, as we talked earlier. Uh, Already on pace to have a better record. They only finished 82-80 last year, so barely over 500, and right now they are 16 games above 500. So I think that's a very, very good turnaround in 1 year for him to take the Padres in the division they're in and lead them this well.
Definitely. All right. Well, those are our MLB Spotlight Award winners, and those are our yeah, that's who we have for the MLB and the NFL for those award winners. The last thing that we'll do, so Caleb and I are kind of excited for this. I kind of just came up with this idea yesterday. And I mean, well, Matt was kind of involved with it too, but I was mainly the one that kind of brought it up, and they both kind of agreed upon it. What we're gonna do is we're going to make our next podcast episode not necessarily a podcast episode. It's how it's going to work. It's going to be an all-time fantasy draft for the MLB. All right. So how it will work, we have all of the hitter positions up there. So catcher, first, second, third, all the outfield spots, short, and DH. Um, and then we also have 5-man rotation, 2 reliever spots, and a closer. You guys have any other things to add?
What?
I'll
Wait,
take
what?
that. I was saying, do you guys have any other things to add on that?
Oh no, sorry.
No, you're good.
I don't really have anything left to add. I mean, I'm really excited for this draft. We'll do a nice little in between episode where we're gonna do a draft. The old time baseball fans that know a lot, they're definitely gonna be excited for this one. I'm sure.
Yep, for sure. Okay, so without further ado, thank you for watching our episode of Field and Diamond Talks, and we will see you next time for the Field and Diamond Talks all-time fantasy draft.